And now we're moving to the lecture part of our service. Our speaker today is our pastor, Reverend Steve Adkins, the pastor of the People's Church of Divine Prophecy. Reverend Steve Adkins is an ordained minister, medium, healer, teacher, and lecturer. He serves as pastor of the People's Church of Divine Prophecy, which meets every Sunday morning right here. He has been a spiritual worker for the past 25 years, and he has worked on 3 continents demonstrating evidential spiritual existence and performing physical healing. Besides all the qualifications that you heard, Reverend Steve is the founder of this church, People's Church, the People's Church of Divine Prophecy. And when I first came to this church was almost 2 years ago, and the church was in its beginning stage of growth. And the minute I came and I sat and I listened, actually I was first impressed by its humble beauty and the spirits of those few people and the members that they were here, and they welcomed me with open heart and genuinity. And as I met Reverend Steve, and I asked him, what are the rules, what are the policies of this church? And his response was, Ash, can just be who you are. There are no policies, rules, and regulations that we have to follow. This is the People's Church. Everyone is welcome. And we are all children of God. And we are equal. And we are here to celebrate that unity and love. So help me to welcome our pastor, Reverend Steve Adkins.
Always got to get this thing right. I got a funny voice. Either it's way too loud or way too soft. So. Imagine being my wife. Why are you shouting at me? And I don't think I'm shouting. I started off speaking a little bit about this in the thought for the day. I guess this is something I'd like us all to think about here. Just think about that. Embrace the Spirit with joy. Many times we come on a spiritual quest with a petition to God about what we want and what we need. And much of what my life has been in the past couple years, through duress, through different challenges in my life and those of the people around me, has been to find out what God's purpose is for me. Some of the thoughts that have come to me during this time is that why do we seek spiritual consciousness from God? Why do we seek to be a better person? It's not in our human nature. Our human nature is to stay the same, to stay safe, to stay taking care of ourselves. It's not our nature to be a spiritual person. All of the things that you hear about, the virtues, some of them gratitude, hope, trust, and love, those are emanations from God to us. Those are the inspirations from God to us to get beyond where we are at and how we live. Sometimes our attitudes and our perceptions cause us to be in difficult places of the things that are around us. One of the things that came to me was if you're standing there and you're getting rained on, how many of us like that? Not too many of us like getting rained on. But without rain, we couldn't have life. It's the very thing that allows us to live, and here we are fussing about it falling on us. That's us being involved in a personal perception of a much larger picture. We can look around us every day and see the gifts of God if we choose to, or we can see the difficulties in our lives. I've got as many difficulties as anybody does. I've got family that's having difficulties. Fortunately for me, I've worked very hard the last couple of years, and most of my difficulties are dealing with other people's difficulties. I have minor setbacks. A mechanic wanted to charge me $120 to put belts on my truck, so I said, heck, I used to do that, I'll do that. $20 worth of belts, and 2 hours later the belts were still squeaking. Did that aggravate me? Absolutely. Did I wonder what happened, why I couldn't still do that? Absolutely. But I didn't let it ruin my day. I didn't let it make me act out of hand towards other people. And too many times in the past I found myself being right on the edge of losing it. And the least little thing that happens, then I'm really difficult with people from that point on for the rest of the day. So what I try to do is at every point, every time I react with something or someone or a thought, I try to keep it from turning to the difficult side. I try to stop for a moment and let God into my life. As I said too many times, we're in this Santa Claus mode with God. I need this, I want that, give me this. If you had a friend and every time they saw you, they spoke to you like that, how long would you still be friends with them? You expect a certain amount of respect from them back. As I said before, I can't help but feel that there is a natural thing that occurs within the human race, the social storms that occur. If it happens to the animals in nature, why can't it happen to us? A storm of indifference. A storm of difficulty that is not personally aimed at us. But we have to deal with it nonetheless. This is God putting our attention on ourselves, giving us a chance to co-create with God during these difficult times. Having a trust and a faith that where we're being led is going to better our lives. I personally have been the type of person, but some people, they get a little difficult and a little challenged and they say, gee, maybe I should change my life. I'm the type that's got to be knocked out with a 2x4 before I realize that it's not working. And God's inspiration of change is like that with everybody. First there's a little nudge, then there's a little maybe, then there's a little difficulty, then there's more difficulty, and it just keeps growing and growing until we get the message and change. We just begin to keep pushing and pushing. My attitude used to be, if somebody said to me, you better or else, well, I might like the or else. Let's try that side of it one time. In later years, I've decided that that's just not the way to be. You can only stand on your own so long. You can only stand against the tide by yourself so long. Our very nature is to need others. Our very nature is to help others. This is the spiritual side of us. And it's continually pounded by this society and this world around us with a complete opposite. If you look at the virtues, hope, love, gratitude, trust, forgiveness. The very nature of this world flies in the face of that. It's all limited. It's all finite. It's all short-term. A lot of times I can look back on my life and I can see where I asked God for something, and a month later I get it and I forgot I asked for it. We want something now. As human beings in a physical world, we want it now. Our need is now. And what happens is when we beseech the higher side for it, it takes them a while to get around to giving it to us sometimes. Sometimes it takes months. And the reason for that, I think, is because God in the spirit realm react to us with a view of eternity, not a view of now. They see us as an eternal being. They see us as our whole existence. We only react within the reality of what's in front of us right now. Now, sure, we have plans for the future, but when you think of 80 to 90 years of living versus an infinite number of years of living in spirit, 80 to 90 years is a blink. We think in a blink, they think in eternity. And everything that is given to us is given to us with the perspective of that eternal life, not just the physical life. So it takes them a little while to get things to happen to us. As a result, we ask for something and it comes around and we go, gee, I sure would have liked to have that a month ago. You know? Why didn't I get it a month ago? There's signs around us all the time of God and the spiritual forces trying to work with us. Every day, every moment. But if we're too bound up in what's going on in the physical, we tend to not see those things. Your mind can only hold one vibration of thought at a time. And if it's distressed, if it's unhappy, that is what you see in the world around you, regardless of what happens in front of you. That is your perception of everything that comes in through the physical mind. That's the danger of sitting and being unhappy. You miss the guidance that's put before you. You miss the synchronicity of things. You miss speaking to somebody in a line that may have a job when you're unemployed. You're so caught up in your own issue, you don't pay attention to the people in front or in back of you. And that person right next to you may well have the answer to your problem, even if you don't know them. Synchronicity. That's God's way of acting when He wants to remain anonymous. That happens through people. It happens through being at the right place at the right time. And if you're at the right place in the right time and you're not paying attention, guess what? You're not going to get it. And I'm not of the camp that says you only get one shot at stuff. I think God gives you a chance every single day, numerous times a day. It's just up to us to open our minds and eyes and see it and receive it that way. Many times in spiritual endeavors, the purpose is the effort, not the accomplishment of what we set out to do. It's putting our minds on a spiritual effort in the middle of difficult times. Just trying to do the right thing, trying to do a spiritual effort changes the game. It changes the energy that you receive. It changes the way you perceive things. Just try. And many, many times, that's how spiritual things work. The effort is what counts, not the accomplishment of the goal. The accomplishment of the goal is the physical realm's values. The effort and the energy is the spiritual and God's realm. The world changes all the time. We change all the time. Our duty is to be compassionate people, to help those that are less able to help themselves, and to feel secure in our position with God. Being humble is not being on your knees and taking a beating. Being forgiving is not allowing somebody a second shot at you that's already done you wrong. The higher side of both of those is to realize where that person's at, not wish them harm, and move on and leave them be until they choose to change. It's very difficult when you care about somebody, let alone somebody that you don't even know, to see that happening to them. But as I said in my thought for the day, the very fact that your heart is hurting shows that you are a spiritual person. The very fact that your heart hurts indicates that you are connected to God in spirit. Because unkind people and evil people don't feel that way. They feel no consciousness of wrongdoing. They feel absolutely no remorse for wrongdoing. We as spiritual people feel both. And I would rather in the long run feel that way than not feel that way, because I've been on both sides of that fence. I existed for many years drinking and doing drugs and not caring about anybody but myself. And that whole part of my life was a blur. I can't remember any of the people I met. I can't remember any of the experiences I had. I can't remember anything of note of those years of my life. It's a blur. I started down that road one day, and when I got out of it, I woke up in a hospital. And I changed my life. And I remember almost everything and everyone from the day that I started acting like a spiritual person. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you I wear a halo, because there's a lot of people out there that would disagree strongly with that. But part of being a spiritual person is to be honest with yourself and honest with others. But what you learn being honest with others is a spiritual honesty, not a brutal honesty. It's an honesty expressed with kindness. It's an honesty expressed with hope of them seeing God's grace in their life. It's not an honesty where you attack them. Because we as spiritual people see things that other people don't see. And if we revert to our human side, we can be very unkind, because we see those things with our spiritual visionary. And we can really hurt somebody far more than those that don't see that. So we have a responsibility with that God-given vision to be kind while we're helping people, to be kind while we're telling people things that they need to hear, not to have our way, not to impress people to do what we think, but to actually act within God's purpose in that person's life. So I would ask you to think about these things as you move through your day, and realize that it's an experiment every day that we wake up. We're not expected to be anything when we wake up. We are inspired to be certain things. Take time to feel the inspiration of God in your life and leave your expectations aside. Be moved in the moment. Be moved when you get up in the morning. Instead of being upset about the power bill, be thankful you got power in your house. Instead of being upset about a car payment, be thankful that you're able to have a car. Because I know a lot of people that cannot even own a car, cannot get a driver's license because of physical impairments. There's a lot of countries around the world where people do not have electricity in their houses. I lived in a place in southern Ohio where if you had electricity and water in your house, you was considered rich. Those hill people have been living the same way for hundreds of years. I mean, you really don't understand the beauty and the gratitude of things that you have until you go out and see how the things that people don't have. And I guess that's one of the biggest things that we have to realize is the gratitude of what we have in our lives, not always wanting more, trying to accept what we have, being happy for what we have instead of wanting more. As we move through life, things will be presented to us. I lived one paycheck away from bankruptcy when I was earning $5 an hour, and I'm living one paycheck away from bankruptcy now, making about 5 times that. But I enjoy my life. I enjoyed my life then, and I enjoy my life now. If I had tens of thousands of dollars in a savings account, and I got called up to the Hall of Judgment tomorrow, what good is that money doing me? Well, the bills are paid, people around me are happy, and I'm trying to help at every turn that I can. Take time to feel God's love and God's inspiration in your life. Allow synchronicity to occur. See God's inspiration in your life. Take time to speak to those people that happen across your life, because there are no accidents. Every person that happens across your life is there for a reason. Take time to take that opportunity to be a spiritual person. Take time to at least offer that help. As I moved through my life, I kind of thought that when you had children, they left the house at 20 and were done. I hear a few good laughs about that. We all kind of know that that just never changes. You know, they're your children. If you're 80 and they're 60, they're still your kids, and that's never going to change. But what we learn to do is to apply spiritual beliefs to them, to allow them to move on. As we move through our lives again, take time to see God's love. Take time to look at the flowers that are presented to you that are by the roadside. Take time to hear the birds instead of the traffic noise. You ever notice how when you're standing by a busy road and there's trees there and one little bird starts singing, you hear that bird over all the traffic that's going by? Take time to put your mind on God's guidance. Be kind to yourself when you don't come up to the mark. Be kind to others. Thank you.